All right, everyone, welcome back to another Python basic worksheet tutorial. We're looking at question 5, which is actually from CMC's Python module. And basically, we're trying to create a minimum payment calculator. And the way it goes that a customer is going to pay either $10 or 2.1% of their balance, whichever is greater. However, there is a little rule that if any of that payment is greater than the balance, then the minimum payment has to be the entire balance itself. So we're going to be using min and max here to help us calculate this problem. So if we look at example 1, if our balance was 1,000, then we should print 21 because 2.1% of that $1,000 is greater than $10. On example 2, if our balance is 25, we should print $10 because 2.1% of 25 is not greater than 10. So let's set up our program here first. We're going to say input, and we're going to get the customer's balance. And let's just grab a quick integer, enter your balance. You can use a float here. It doesn't really matter, but we're going to keep it simple. And then processing, we're going to deal with after, and we're going to output print payment cost is payment. So as you can see, I'm printing a variable called payment, which doesn't exist right now. So prior to this line, I need to create a variable called payment. And I set it to 0 because I want to do some calculations and I want to set that calculation to be set to the payment. Okay, here we go. For a payment section, okay. Now I want the maximum of either $10 or 2.1% of the customer's balance, right? So that's what we're looking at. However, it can't exceed the customer's balance, as in if any of that exceeds the customer's balance, they can't afford it. So we have to take the, what's it called? We have to just make the customer pay the balance. So what we're going to do is I want the minimum of either the $10 that they need to pay or the customer's balance. What I'm doing here is that I'm comparing $10 to customer's balance, okay? And I'm always going to get the smaller value. If they have more than $10, we're always going to get $10, and that's going to be one of the choices. If they have less than $10, it's always going to return the balance because balance is smaller than 10. At this moment here, I'm going to use the max function to say that, well, I want 0.21 times balance because that's the 2.1% of the balance. And then compare it to the min function running here. So the max function is comparing this calculation with this calculation, and it's going to output the bigger value. And in this calculation here, it's comparing 10 and the balance. So what this line 15 is going to do is we're going to assign the result of all of this onto the variable payment. To calculate this, it's going to calculate min first. We're going function within a function, and it's going to output either 10 or the balance. In a scenario where balance is less than 10, balance itself is always going to be greater than 2.1% of the balance, and they will be paying the entire balance as their minimum payment because they can't afford the other $10, right? That's the only scenario where they will pay the entire balance. In a scenario where $10 is the smaller than balance, we're always going to compare the $10 between the 2.1% of our balance and output whichever is greater. So let's run our program. So if I were to say $1,000 in my bank account, I'm outputting $21 because they should be outputting 20. Now, if we wanted to stay consistent, I'm going to show you how to convert that in a bit. Let's run that with 25. That's going to give me 10 because 10 is going to be greater than 2.1% on my balance of $20, $25. But if I only had $9, my entire payment should be 9 because I can't afford the maximum payment of $10 or the minimum payment of $10. Just to make sure that we don't get any weird floating point values here, we're going to turn that into an integer. There is a point where if we multiply the balance by 0.021, we are going to get a floating point. So we're going to keep this as an integer, and that will help us get our output correct. Thank you for watching. Stay classy.